Good evening. I hope you've had a good weekend. One thing that has never ceased to amaze me is that all cops think like cops. Now you get lawyers. I mean, you get three lawyers in a room around a table and you show them a set of facts and you'll get three different conclusions. You'll have the prosecutor who looks at the facts and says, guilty," or the plaintiff or the petitioner. The other one of the other lawyers will be the defendant or attorney for the defendant or the attorney for the respondent. You'll see completely different. Same facts, two different opinions. And then the third lawyer will be the judge, and the judge will look at the same facts and will probably come to a completely different and novel conclusion. But you get three cops and you get the same three opinions. Back the blue, right? Now, I know some of you in my audience think that my sole purpose here is to punch down on auditors. But you have to remember that I got into this because I love the First Amendment. I love freedom of speech. I love the right to film in public. I want to protect my constitutional right to film government officials engaged in their duties on public property or in public. And I don't want people to attempt to shame or try to make me self-censor or try to make others self-censor. I think that's pretty stupid, and I think that's counterproductive. And my answer to speech that you don't like is always to provide the speech you do like. If you don't like what someone's saying, say something different. So anyway, I don't like what Blue Bacon's saying here, and let's go through it. He says, to all you First Amendment auditors out there, and I have done First Amendment audits, so I'm going to count myself as a First Amendment auditor. He says, if you want to get footage and audio of the police conducting their lawful duties, may I recommend a telephoto lens and parabolic microphone? That way you don't have to get, in quotes, harassed, end quote, by the police for being too close, or is getting, quote, harassed, end quote, the intention. There used to be a similar thing going around for women where the general intent of the statement, and Blue Bacon didn't make this. So I want to be clear that Blue Bacon did not say this, but it has been said, and it has been used in, like I remember hearing this back in law school about judges and defense attorneys and things like that saying that, if she didn't want to get raped, she shouldn't have worn that short skirt, things like that. Completely trying to take all the agency and the personal responsibility away from the person who actually committed the crime, who actually violated someone's rights. Like the rapist has a choice. I mean, it doesn't matter how short the skirt is. It doesn't matter if the woman's naked for that matter. I mean, you have a choice whether or not you rape or don't rape, and you are responsible for your own actions. Just like the police, they don't have to, in quotes, harass, end quote, people for recording them. And it's funny that you minimize the language to be harassed when a lot of times it goes beyond that. They get arrested, taken to jail, charged, mostly to have those charges dropped. I saw a video a little while back, not too long ago, a gentleman recording in a field. There was somebody up on I believe it was an electrical tower, who was threatening to jump. He was so far back you couldn't even really, and the footage was grainy, couldn't even really see the dude up there. And he gets arrested because he doesn't want to move back any further because he's a long way away. And how far back do you have to go? Well, according to the cop, you got to go far enough away where you're no longer going to be, I don't know, in view of the guy who's threatening to jump, because somehow some schlub with a camera is going to be more disconcerting to someone who's about to kill themselves than having a bunch of armed men yelling at him to get down or what have you. Cop logic. Anyway, I just want to make it clear for the cops out there that it is a settled right in the Fifth Circuit, Turner v. Driver. It is a settled right, as in you don't have qualified immunity anymore. It was always a right, but the Fifth Circuit just clarified it, made sure that all the officers operating in the Fifth Circuit are fully aware that you have the right to film the police in public, subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. You also have that right in the First Circuit. You also have that right in the Seventh Circuit. You also have that right in the Ninth Circuit. Fordyce v. Seattle, which I believe is close to where Blue Bacon is. I believe he is operating in Washington or Oregon. I'm not sure which. He's mentioned it. He's gone to protests and stuff. I'm not doxing him. I'm just saying that where he's at, if he wants to, in quotes, harass, end quote, First Amendment auditors engaged in filming the police and the performance of their duties on public property, then he should be aware that it is well settled in the Ninth Circuit. Smith v. Cummings is 11th Circuit, and Fields v. City of Philadelphia, that's 3rd Circuit. So if you think it's not coming to the other circuits, well, they just haven't made their decisions yet. It hasn't gotten to them in some form or fashion. It hasn't made it up to the circuit court level, Court of Appeals level. But it'll get there. So I've said it. Maybe you're thinking in your head, well, what is a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction? Well, that's kind of laid out in Ward v. Rock against racism. And the first inquiry is it has to be a content neutral regulation and a government regulation of expressive activity is content neutral so long as it is justified without reference to the content of the regulated speech. So let's say you're some officer and you say, I don't think you should be able to film the police, and I'm going to exercise my powers as a police officer to say right here, right now, you can't film the police. Well, that would be an interesting thing for that cop to say, because he's saying the content of what you can't film. So you could film passing cars, you could film the birds standing in the spot you're at, right? But you can't film the police. That, in my head, sounds like it is not a content neutral regulation. It also has to be narrowly tailored to serve a significant government interest, content neutral, and leave open ample alternative channels for communication. But this is where they start A. So there you go. Got to be content neutral. B is talking about narrowly tailored to serve the significant governmental interest. And what is a narrow tailoring? Well, the requirement of narrow tailoring is satisfied so long as the regulation promotes a substantial government interest that would be achieved less effectively absent the regulation. That doesn't really make a lot of sense, I know. But the government may not regulate speech in such a manner that a substantial portion of the burden of speech does not serve to advance its goals. Well, what's the goal? What's the significant government interest, or the substantial government interest? In not filming the police. I've never really figured that one out. I mean, if you get too close, they may tell you to move back, sure. But if they're letting other people get that close who aren't carrying a camera or who aren't filming them, but they're not letting you get that close because you are filming them, well, then they got to have a reason for that. And then finally, the final requirement is it has to leave open ample alternative channels of communication. And, well, in this particular instance where you're trying to film what the police are doing, you have to be left in a place where you can film what they're doing. And again, you can't just keep pushing them back and back and back. And I want to point to Fields v. City of Philadelphia. In Fields v. City of Philadelphia, Garachi, she moved. Someone was getting arrested. There was a protest, and she moved to a spot where she could observe. Let's see where it says it in here. She moved to a spot where she could see what was going on. Fields, her. She moved to a better vantage point to record the arrest and did so without interfering with the police. An officer abruptly pushed Garachi and pinned her against a pillar for 1 to 3 minutes, which prevented her from observing or recording the arrest. She needs to have access to that vantage point. That's the ample alternative channels. She cannot communicate her message without being able to actually record what the police are doing. Fields was across the street. He was on a public sidewalk. He observed officers breaking up a house party. The nearest officer was 15 feet away from him. He was apparently across the street. It says somewhere else in here that he was across the street. Using his cell phone, Mr. Bacon, who thinks that First Amendment auditors should get parabolic mics and telephoto lenses, using his iPhone, he took a photograph of the scene. An officer noticed Fields taking the photograph and asked him whether he'd like taking pictures of grown men and ordered him to leave. Fields refused, so the officer arrested him, confiscated his phone, detained him, searched the phone, opened several videos and other photos. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Anyway, Mr. Bacon, how about instead of trying to lecture First Amendment auditors, I mean, if they break the law, great, sure. If a First Amendment auditor breaks the law, call them out. Say, you broke the law, you were dumb, and you're getting what you deserve. Absolutely. But if they're not breaking the law, if they do want to get footage and audio of the police, remember that everything a First Amendment auditor can do, just an average citizen can do. So when you're trying to place these burdens on First Amendment auditors, if these do become law somehow, I'm not saying you're trying to make them law. I get it. You're just trying to self-censor, make people self-censor. But if those restrictions were put into place, it would not only affect First Amendment auditors, it would affect your average citizen. And, Fields versus the City of Philadelphia, they really lay it out. You have the Rodney King footage. We wouldn't have that. Here we go. He took a photograph across the street from where the police were breaking up the party. I told you. But we wouldn't have a lot of the footage that we have received that have helped exonerate people, have shown planting of evidence, have shown various violations of people's rights, people who are abused. All right. Bystander videos provide different perspectives than police and dashboard cameras, portraying circumstances and surroundings that police videos often do not capture. Civilian video also fills the gaps created when police choose not to record video or to withhold their footage from the public. See National Police Accountability Project amicus brief, noting that a recent survey of 50 major police departments' policies on body cameras revealed that many policies either failed to make clear when officers must turn on their body cameras, gave officers too much discretion on when to record, or failed to require explanations when officers did not record. The public's creation of this content also complements the role of the news media. Indeed, citizens gathering and disseminating, in quotes, newsworthy information occur with an ease that rivals that of the major traditional news media, end quote. From the U.S. DOJ letter to Baltimore Police Department. See also Glick. The proliferation of electronic devices with video recording capability means that many of our images of current events come from bystanders with a ready cell phone or digital camera rather than a traditional film crew. And news stories are now just as likely to be broken by a blogger at her computer as a reporter at a major newspaper, end quote. In addition to complementing the role of the traditional press, private recordings have improved professional reporting as, in quotes, video content generated by witnesses and bystanders have become a common component of news programming, end quote. From the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press and 31 media organizations amicus brief. Also, quoting, today, the first source of information from the scene of a newsworthy event is frequently an ordinary citizen with a smartphone, end quote. And the inclusion of, quote, bystander video enriches the stories journalists tell, routinely adding a distinct first-person perspective to news coverage, end quote. Moreover, the proliferation of bystander videos has, quote, spurred action at all levels of government to address police misconduct and to protect civil rights, end quote. These videos have helped police departments identify and discipline problem officers. They have also assisted civil rights investigations and aided in the Department of Justice's work with local police departments. And just like the act of recording, regardless of what is recorded, may improve policing. Important to police is that these recordings help them carry out their work. They, every bit as much as we, are concerned with gathering facts that support further investigation or confirm a dead end. And of particular personal concern to police is that bystander recordings can exonerate an officer charged with wrongdoing, citing Turner v. Driver. And then it goes on to say it's subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. But you could just see from the news. I mean, how many of these news stories out there, whether or not you believe that George Floyd was wrongfully killed or what have you, or any of these other cell phone generated stories. I mean, George Floyd, that was all from someone's cell phone. And then I think surveillance camera footage came out later. But whether or not you agree with the outcome, or whether you think that George Floyd did or did not get murdered by the police, whether you think the footage exonerates the police or makes them appear guilty, whichever way you look at it, it is evidence that we have to know how he was treated, to better be able to judge the whole surroundings. Because I don't think any of those officers were wearing body cams. And maybe they were. I don't know. I think there was. Did they release? Anyway, I'm getting off the point. But regardless, that is now evidence that we have, that we can look back on that incident to see whether or not these officers are or are not guilty of anything. And we did it all without telephoto lenses and parabolic microphones. Isn't that crazy? Thanks for watching. Have a great day.